Well, meanwhile, the U.S. is reportedly planning to announce a new long-term Ukraine aid package of $1.2 billion. That expected today as Russia celebrates a victory, its Victory Day holiday, which marks the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany. Russian President Vladimir Putin, speaking at the annual parade in Moscow earlier, he claimed the West provoked his war in Ukraine, and Ukraine has become a pawn to the West's, quote, cruel and selfish plans. Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, it's always a pleasure. Thanks very much for being here this morning.
Delighted to be here.
It's unbelievable how Putin gets away with this, going in this victory parade, attacking Ukraine and justifying its war. Your thoughts?
Well, certainly that's been a long-term narrative of him. He actually believes and has told his people for years that it's the United States and Europe, particularly NATO, that are encroaching on Russia and making them having to defend themselves. And the reason for going into Ukraine in the first place, he's always attached himself to the military victory over the Nazis in World War II, and he used that as a basis for going into Ukraine, saying that he had to put down the Nazi neo-movement that was taking place inside of Ukraine. I mean, nobody in Europe certainly buys into any of that narrative, and a certain amount of his people don't buy it, but there are people in Russia who do buy into that narrative. I will say that his celebration here on 9 May, which is their biggest holiday of the year, and he certainly has inflated this holiday much more so than his predecessors have done, it's much more muted. There is a big parade, but most of the parades around the country have been canceled, and the parade itself doesn't have the display of veterans carrying pictures of those who were killed during the World War II campaign. And many people looking at this, why has he changed when he's given so much emphasis to it in the past? Two reasons. One, they're afraid of an attack, a potential attack on the parade itself. Secondly, and I think this is the main reason, they're afraid of protesters. Protesters attaching the sacrifice and loss that took place during World War II with the sacrifice and loss that's taking place right now in Ukraine, where they've lost 20,000 people just since December, close to 200,000 total, which is very, very significant when you compare it to United States losses in Korea, 35,000, in Vietnam, 56,000, and considerably less in the 9/11 wars. So yes, that is what's happening today. False narrative, to be sure. That's to be expected, but also a muted 9 May celebration for that reason.
I want to get back to Ukraine in a moment and get your take on additional money going there. But first, the other dominant group that's afraid of protesters are China. Chinese state media is now reporting that Beijing is launching a nationwide anti-spy crackdown on consulting firms. This says Chinese security officials are accusing CapVision, a consulting firm with headquarters in New York and Shanghai, of leaning and leaking state secrets and having ties with foreign intelligence agencies. CapVision employees were reportedly questioned. Some items were searched and seized. General, this is happening just a couple of weeks after police went and searched Bain & Company. I mean, they're obviously justifying that search and raid with this idea that somebody's spying on China, as, of course, it has released spy balloons into America and elsewhere.
Yeah, there's no doubt here that China is increasing its pressure on foreign businesses operating inside of China. I mean, the reality is what Xi is trying to balance. He wants foreign investment, but he also wants his state-owned enterprises to eventually replace the private sector companies that are operating in China. He said that 3 years ago when he gathered all the CEOs of the state-owned companies together. So, and what his concern is here is that these consulting firms, CapVision, Bain, Minsk, they all gather information from China's operatives, the Chinese Communist Party, and their businesses in terms of what is happening. What is the mindset of the Chinese leadership? What are they thinking? What's the risk to these businesses operating in China going forward and their supply chains? So these consulting firms naturally have antennas out in these other companies and in the Chinese Communist Party. President Xi considers that spying, and that's why he's cracking down on them. He's also begun some cracking down on the technology sector. And also, just recently, he passed a law saying that he can deny people exiting China who are not only Chinese nationals, but are business people who operate in China or are visiting China. These are some of the national security laws that we saw being passed in Hong Kong that eventually led to a significant crackdown. This is the real President Xi here. You know, he's a master at communicating directly to his Chinese Communist Party and then having something of a false narrative, a more balanced narrative, Maria, that appeals to the media that talks to the West. And he's been doing this for years. But finally, the penetration of who he really is gradually coming out, obviously because he wants domination and control.
Well, American companies need to wake up and understand the treatment that foreigners get in China. Meanwhile, then there's Iran. Dozens of former U.S. diplomats and members of Congress, among other officials, are calling on President Biden to end all diplomacy with Iran. There's a new letter that they write that is urging the administration to, quote, stop all diplomatic overtures toward the Islamic Republic of Iran and instead reimpose the maximum pressure campaign, the only effective policy to protect the American people, the Iranian people, and others in the region and around the world from the Islamic Republic's threats. General, do you think the administration will do this? I mean, it took it long enough to pretty much walk away from the Iran deal. We don't even know if it's officially over. But your reaction to this new pressure on the administration to stop diplomacy with Iran?
No, they're not going to do it. But their strategic mistake in the Middle East is glaring. It only pales by comparison to the Afghanistan debacle. But it's really serious because when they came in the beginning, as opposed to taking advantage of the fact that the Trump administration had just taken down Qasem Soleimani, and the fact that Iran was on its heels given the maximum sanctions that you referenced, and what they should have done is fix some of the loopholes that always exist in sanctions, strengthen the Abraham Accords, get more Arabs working with Israel in a coalition against Iran, and establish and strengthen the relationship with the Arabs and the Israelis. What did the administration do? Step one was beginning to go back to the nuclear deal, appease Iran, and ease up on some of the sanctions, and no effort to strengthen the Abraham Accords with the Arabs. Quite the contrary. They stiffed the Arabs, and that is why the Arabs, when they're looking at the situation here, they see, well, the United States is really not interested in the Middle East, so we're going to have to broker deals with Russia and China to operate in our national interest. Countries will always operate in their own national interest first, and that is what they're doing. And this is a serious strategic mistake, I believe, on the part of this administration.
By the way, real quick on Ukraine, do we know where all this money is going now that the administration is poised to send another package of aid to Ukraine?
Yeah, this is security assistance. It's a different pile. This goes directly to the defense industry to develop weapons that Ukraine needs, not just now, but in the future. This is not a stockpile of existing weapons that we're going to pass directly to the Ukrainians. But add that to the total. Now it's up about $37 billion.
Yeah.
Remember, the United States, when you look at it as a percentage of GDP, there's 4 other countries as a percentage of the wealth they have that give more than the United States, Poland and the 3 Baltic countries. And by the way, Maria, the 1,550 armored vehicles and the 250 tanks that are going into Ukraine and are there now, most of those came from European countries, not the United States. So we got to balance what has taken place. The United States is major provider. Ukraine doesn't survive without the United States assistance. But the Europeans are also participating here, and it's unfair to say they're not. They are. Some countries, like France, are doing very little, to be frank about it. But the Eastern European countries and the United Kingdom, they are all in.
Yeah, because they are also looking to protect themselves should this get worse. General, it's great to talk with you as always. Thanks very much.